Alfonso Cuarón has become one of the most prestigious filmmakers of the new millennium. He has ranged from various genres and is no shy from experimenting. One of his greatest and most complete films is that of Children of Men, a dystopian piece where children are no longer being born. Can you imagine what 18 long years of no new births can do to our society? Well, Cuarón did, inspiring his story on the premise created by P.D. James and her novel of the same name, both of which have very different plots. Cuarón did many things right while filming Children of Men. It is no surprise to say that this is a beautifully shot film. Emmanuel Lubezki teamed up again with Cuarón to deliver some impeccable scenes that match both of their styles with careful use of natural lighting, a constantly moving camera, and inventive wides and viewpoints for an immersive experience. Story-wise, he delivered organic exposition with setups and satisfying payoffs. He organically laid out the rules of the world and greatly handled pacing and emotional shifts. But there's one thing that made Children of Men stand out even more from other dystopian films. Something that Cuarón is always thoughtful of, and that is amazing character development. So let's talk about Theo's character arc in Children of Men. To understand Theo, first we need to understand his world, or his normal world, as author K.M. Weiland likes to call it. In her book, Creating Character Arcs, she defines the character's normal world as the environment surrounding the protagonist which keeps on feeding the lie he believes that governs his life around. This lie that your character believes is what stops a character from having actual progress in his life. A belief that he tunnel visions himself into about himself or his surroundings that is the barrier he needs to overcome for his arc to be completed. Theo, played by Clive Owen, lives in a world where humanity is at its worst. Democracies have shifted towards totalitarian regimes where social classes are as divided as ever. There are refugee camps that treat every refugee as human trash by either killing them for misbehavior or sending them to refugee camps while being jailed on small cages. There's constant terrorist attacks, an increase in suicides, and a somber aura surrounding everyday life.
As the sound of the playgrounds faded, the despair set in. Very odd. What happens in a world without children's voices?
This is a harsh world to live in, and with no way of hearing the actual laughter of a child, where the cry of a newborn baby, life, and heritage became meaningless. What's there to love and live for, if life is doomed by time? As we get to know Theo, we discover he's a divorced man in a dull job. The cause of his divorce? Well, the untimely death of his young son during the flu pandemic of 2008. This heartbreaking turn of events in his life laid the foundations of his pessimist and uninterested personality, and the rest, well, that was made by his dull surroundings. He expresses his own lie deliberately in a conversation with Jasper. He thinks that if infertility were to be cured, it would be too late.
Even if they discovered the cure for infertility, it doesn't matter. Too late. World went to shit. You know what? It was too late before the infertility thing happened, for fuck's sake.
Theo's view of the world is crooked and has lost complete hope toward moving forward. He doesn't feel anymore, becoming apathetic towards his surroundings, preferring a hangover over transcending. His nihilism flows through him and laughs at others who actually go on living for something, as does his cousin.
100 years from now, there won't be one sad fuck to look at any of this. What keeps you going?
You know what it is, Theo? I just don't think about it.
With all that has happened directly and indirectly to Theo, who can actually blame him for this nihilism?
Not me.
Cuarón's ability to make us understand Theo's past and present is key for the audience to reason and empathize with him. He laid the foundation for an impactful character arc during the first act. We become invested in Theo and we want to see him grow out of his misery. The question is how? What can possibly make a man so deep in his own nihilism change? How can Theo's thought that is foolish to fight for humanity can be transformed into actually fighting for it with all he's got? How can a powerful lie become destroyed and be replaced by the truth? In order for a character to be able to grow from his lie about the world, change his behavior, and embrace the truth he's missing, there needs to be a powerful event. One so determining that it makes the character break his mundane routine and embark on the road for self-betterment. In the case of Theo, Children of Men presents him with two clear inciting events. The first one is sufficient enough to make him willingly act for someone and go out of his daily routine, while the second one is a mind-blowing experience that will completely obliterate his normal world. Let's talk about, naturally, the first event in Children of Men. There's a point in the first act where Theo is kidnapped by the parrots, whose leader is none other than his ex-wife, played by Julianne Moore. Knowing that she has an important favor to ask of him, and that she is willing to pay, Theo goes through the classic behavior of wandering into sudden opportunity, refusing the job, and then reluctantly accepting it. While accepting the mission, his view of the world hasn't changed. He's motivated partly for the money and partly for nostalgia.
Just like the old days, back at the bus.
Yeah.
The fact that it was his ex-wife who asked him to escort a young girl through various checkpoints was the main reason he agreed upon the job.
No, I mean, what happens to us?
I don't know. Theo, come on, you came for the money.
Did I?
To shatter his world, there needs to be a stronger motivator that inspires him to replenish his hope for humanity. The way Cuaron wrote the path between point A, Theo accepting and embarking on the job, to B, begin his fight for humanity, has one of the most memorable longshots in cinematic history. The longshot inside the car as they get ambushed by the rebels. This scene alone is immersive and handles pacing, emotion, and tension like no other. At the beginning of the scene, everything is playfulness and casual conversation, as in any long trip in a car. This preface is necessary for two things mainly: establish a safe and happy environment as a bubble shielded from the harsh world surrounding them, and to catch a glimpse of Theo being sincerely happy.
Okay. Do it again! Do it again!
Reconnecting with his ex-wife is evidently bringing joy out of Theo. For this fact alone, we as an audience start to slowly care about Julian. But when the scene is at its happiest, bam! The surprise arrives, and with it, a 180-degree shift in our feelings. The execution of it works even better for how well pacing and the shift in emotions were handled. Those polar shifts generate a reaction, and the moment becomes inscribed in the viewer's mind. The scene goes from happiness to intrigue, then terror, followed by surprise, and then utter shock. All this roller coaster of emotions end up in sadness as we see the fading light of hope in Theo extinguish as he holds Julian while she dies. This inciting event brings a hint of hope to Theo, only to leave him worse than when he started. Now, at a new low, he needs to be presented with an even bigger force to motivate his actions. A bigger inciting event. Just as he's preparing to go back to London, Key, the girl he needed to transport out of the city, shares her secret to him. This is no ordinary secret, but a completely breathtaking shift of events, not only for Theo, but the world itself. She reveals to him that there is in fact one pregnancy after all those years of infertility. Key is that 8-month pregnant woman. The news ignites purpose to Theo, and now, for the first time, he actually becomes an active character in the story. His behavior becomes one of a new person. Later, after he discovers that the ambush was made by the same parrots and that the plan is also to kill him, he decides to flee with Key. After this moment, Theo's normal world is completely shattered. There's no way back to his old life. His new normal world has found purpose, and this is the safety of Key and her baby. With these events, our reluctant hero shifted from thinking it's foolish to think that humanity can be saved to actually participating and risking everything he has left for humanity's sake. Theo's new normal has made him realize that there's actual hope in the world in the form of Key and her baby. His road to redemption is now clearer than ever. He needs to safely bring Key to the Human Project's ship. But this won't be an easy task. If you thought Theo's losses would have stopped after the loss of Julian, well, sadly you'll see how the plot thickens while taking everything he holds dear away from him. But for Theo, humanity is now more important than ever before. After the baby is successfully born, a ray of light shines on Theo and Key. Life started restoring its balance. Hope became a reality. The next morning, everything complicates. There's mutiny, and the army fights parrots and Fujis alike. This climactic scene, filmed in another outstanding long shot, became necessary for a final cathartic moment that helped Theo and Key ground the reality of what her baby can mean for society. With this scene, Theo can briefly see the impact and transcendence of his heroic action. At this moment, the action set piece transforms into a beautiful scene. After Theo finds Key and her crying baby, the war suddenly stops. Both sides shut down their attacks as they hear a baby cry for the first time in years. This scene comes out as the calm amidst the storm, bringing levity and cathartic satisfaction. After all, this scene briefly shows that the world is not doomed after all. That Theo was initially wrong. It is not too late to save the world. After this, Theo and Key manage to escape to the boat and search for the humans' project's fishing ship. Here, Theo's character arc goes full circle. He reveals his fatal gun wound. But this doesn't matter at all to him. Theo achieved his intentions and brought Key and the baby to safety. He dies slowly with a grin on his face after Key tells him that she'll name the girl Dylan, after Theo's and Julian's lost child. This journey becomes an all-in risk for Theo, which only makes his success feel all the more earned and satisfying. He lost everything in the road to redemption: Julian, Jasper, and even his own life, all for a bigger, selfless purpose. Theo died as a completely different man than the one we were introduced to at the beginning of Children of Men. The most apathetic man in London, the one that believed humanity was long lost, became key for its actual survival. The film cuts to black and the credits start to roll as children's laughter is heard instead of a song, the more typical choice for film credits, suggesting that not only did Key's baby survive, but other birds started flourishing and repopulating the earth. Leading a character arc like this one is no easy task. It needs to flow naturally and realistically in the world it is set up on. Cuaron and his team executed it flawlessly in Children of Men, and delivered a filmmaking piece that became a standard for great storytelling and cinematography for today and for years to come. Hey guys, thanks for watching. We finally started our YouTube channel. If you liked our content, be sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. We would really appreciate it. Also, be sure to check out our other videos. Until next time.